Hi guys, I'm Dan at vintagevelo.org, and today I'm going to have a little discussion about why cyclists in the UK face so much kind of hatred and aggression on the roads. Now a lot of this follows, well, it's been going on for many years and kind of getting worse. Very recently we've just had a new bit of law legislation come out, made a crime of death by dangerous cycling, where we can be banged up for 14 years. Now, statistically, you know, that's been ridiculed. You've got more chance of being killed by a cow sitting on you or being struck by lightning than being taken out by a cyclist. But that doesn't stop points politically being scored and certain areas of the media loving it and lapping that kind of stuff up. And, you know, that in turn leads to quite a bit more aggression on the roads aimed towards cyclists. Now, reason for this video, I couldn't help but notice. I was riding in the UK a few days ago, and it was a nice, warm, sunny afternoon. Probably the reason why I remember it, if I'm honest, this year. And I was out on the vintage Bianchi, lots of chrome, lovely Celeste colour, matching kit. I thought I was looking pretty neat. And I was on my own, so you think that kind of thing, you know, lone cyclist, I would say clearly into vintage gear might get a little bit of a free pass, but no. While I was out there, I'm going to change the language here for YouTube, but twice, or by road users, car users on the other side of the road, so not even guys I was getting in the way of, but guys on the other side of the road felt they were okay to call me an anchor. One young lady, again on the other side of the road, called me a fenking anchor, very loudly, quite impressive. And then I had a narrow pass with a blaring horn and gesticulation out of the window. Yeah. And this was just me on my own. Now, I'm sure club riders or anyone, you know, sure, if you're going two abreast and there's 8 of you, it must be way worse. And I can't for one moment imagine what it's like for horse riders. That must be unbelievable for them. But, you know, it makes you question why it's got to the point it has. And in this video we're going to talk about that and perhaps some ideas on what we can do about it. But first off, what's going on? So what are the issues facing us in the UK? Well, the most obvious is a colossal lack of spending on any road infrastructure for many years. It's kind of endemic within the UK. I know I often joke about comparing the road surfaces to that of Belgian pave, and sometimes Belgian pave is better maintained than our road system, but it is unfortunately kind of like that in the UK. Now, I appreciate elsewhere in the world you guys have your own problems. I know riding in South Africa is just kind of crazy and a real challenge. Australia with the road trains and the dust, you face your own challenges there as well, but the UK mostly just angry people. And I'll be honest with you, if you ever watch the angry drivers who are angry at us and honking their horns, narrow passing or swearing, they then, once they're past us, they're tailgating the next car, honking, flashing lights, and they're just angry. There's an awful lot of anger in the UK at the moment. And any time any money is spent on road infrastructure, especially if it's anything to do with cyclists, then that is immediately denigrated by some areas of the media. That money could well be spent on road users and car users, and they're the important ones because they pay the money. Of course, we all know that money's not spent. It's never going to be spent on road users, but in general the roads themselves and the infrastructure just needs picking up across the board. It's going to take years for anyone to do anything really substantial because they are really bad. Just to get them back up to a serviceable nature would take years of efforts, infrastructure, spending and the political will. Who knows where we go? There's an election this year, things could change, maybe not, no idea. So let's just touch a little bit on the angry driver situation, especially in the UK. Now, probably like most of you watching this, we've got to probably have a few commuters, and there it's a different animal altogether, city riding. But certainly, if you're a recreational rider, mostly like myself, and you're probably like me, doing it for 2 reasons. The first, fitness, We're keeping lean, keeping fit. It's really good for us. The second, sheer enjoyment. I love riding my bikes. I love everything to do with bikes. It's all great, but I don't like the anger and the stress put upon me sometimes in the UK. My wife, long suffering as she is to put up with me, to be honest, she did point out to me last year when I came back after a very head-up situation where things were almost coming to blows with another road user, and she did remind me that I have to sometimes think of those other road users. There I am, I'm out riding, enjoying myself, enjoying the day, enjoying Sunday. They're stuck in their cars trying to get from A to B. There's too much traffic, there's too much smoke, the potholes are everywhere, they're trying to dodge them, they're all angry. And often those same road users that are angry are the same ones that are then off tailgating the next car. And it's not necessarily intended to be aimed at us, and sometimes we have to change our mentality just a little bit. I do appreciate why some riders have helmet cams and they like to upload footage of dangerous drivers to YouTube and things like that, and social media shaming. I'm not one of them. That's not what I'm riding for. And you'd be surprised, you change a little bit up here, your enjoyment for riding again, even on those tricky things, you just kind of shrug it off. What's it matter? As long as you're still upright, they haven't hit you, it doesn't matter. Let them go, let them be angry. They're going to be angry with the next person. They're just angry. Okay, so we've now got an understanding of all the problems that we face in the UK when out riding, and what any potential politicians in the future, if they ever bother tackling it, will have to deal with. But let us presume for one moment the spirit of Marco Pantani magically appears from my bidon bottle and grants me 3 wishes as Presidente Dan. What would I do as Presidente Dan to deal with a situation? Haha! So, Presidente Dan, at last I win. Now, you give me 3 wishes. The first one is obvious. Let's get spending on the infrastructure. Let's get fixing those road surfaces properly. Let's start ring fencing some of that tax dollar. Make sure that everything is looked after, and then we can start improving difficult interchanges and junctions and things like that. It's a no-brainer, but someone has to start doing it and have the political will to push it through. Presidente Dan, I'm on it. Now, the second wish is one I think is pretty straightforward. It's to directly tie local authorities and town councils in with improvement of cycling infrastructure every year. Now, by that, I mean, like, if you go cycling around your local town, you will probably spot quite a few miles where you could simply add cycle lanes, be that with an adjustment to a pathway, the side of the lane, something like that. But you'd be surprised. I think if you were to legally force authorities to perhaps, if it's a town, be it a mile a year, would be an improvement. 5 miles a year would be awesome. But say you're a city, maybe 20 miles, 10 miles a year, something like that. And after a few years, you're going to really start to see cycling infrastructure improving. And what that directly does is get us cyclists out the way of the car users and the truck users, which frees up the roads to flow better, because we know where we need to be. And to be fair, also with that, I'm going to tie in a little caveat that you've got to clear the broken bottles and stuff like that out of the cycleways, for obvious reasons. We all know what happens in the UK, but that kind of thing is what should be done. And then very quickly, you've got much better cycling infrastructure, much safer, kids are much safer, cyclists are much safer, but we're also off the roads and out of the way of other road users. Now, with my last wish, we definitely need to do something about educating road users in general, not just about cyclists and how to be fairer to us, but all other road users as well. It's going to need like TV advertising, social media campaigns, things like that. Get a few famous faces involved. Imagine James May or Jeremy Clarkson actually coming out on the side of cyclists and pedestrians and people like that. It could definitely, you could change attitudes in a few years if you actually wanted to. And here's something I'm going to touch on, and I'm not sure whether it's somewhere I want to go, but the grief you face as a road user on the UK roads, if that was because of your ethnicity, your religion, your gender, anything. Now, we've got a lot of race hate laws in the UK that are very, very tight, and they're there for very good reason. And you know, should I have a lit flat fag butt flicked at me while someone drives past because they think it's funny? Should I be on the receiving end of verbal abuse regularly? Should I have half-drunk cups of coffee thrown at me or sprayed by someone's water jets because they think it's funny? You know, I'm not gonna for one moment suggest that being a cyclist is anywhere near as bad as some of the racial hatred felt over many, many years and things like that. But there is no doubt that as a cyclist, you are automatically picked out for ridicule by certain sections of society. And, you know, sometimes I think if you legislated for that, you'd probably make the matter worse. I think it would just make angry people even more angry and justified that this is outrageous all the time. So I'm going to rein back from that one as one of my wishes and just say, let's just stick with trying to make people nicer. Now I'm back in from a good ride, giving me a bit more time to think also about that last wish, which is, you know, changing the culture, making people perhaps be a little bit more aware of cyclists and maybe like us a little bit more. I mean, if you want a clear example of this, if you ride in, say, Italy, Spain, France, it's a totally different thing. Sure, the drivers are often pretty mad out on the road sometimes, but they're very respectful of cyclists. They give you a lot of space. I very rarely get any kind of narrow pass. They go past me a lot slower. And I often get waved and encouraged and bon courage, things like that. That's a regular occurrence, so which is kind of cool. And it's a different way of thinking. And sometimes I think maybe us as cyclists, we could do a little bit more to perhaps help the way we are perceived on the road. For sure, you know, jumping red lights, yeah. And when we're riding in groups, certainly two abreast, if you hear a car coming behind, one of you pull over, pull in behind to let that car go past. Sure, legally, nothing up riding two abreast. It's completely legal. It's completely allowed. It's in the highway code. But, you know, maybe we should, you know, be a little bit more considerate, and especially if it's a club run, if there's like 8 or 10 of you in line, and put gaps in between as well, because, you know, the roads are busy. Car pulls out to overtake. Quite often it needs to come back in again because it can't make it, you know, to do a run of 8 of us. Things like that we have to think of. And maybe, you know, we also should be thinking of things like matte black stealth look bikes and kit. On the busy roads of the UK, who thought stealth was a good thing? Fluoro yellow, hell yeah. I mean, I want to do anything to stand out. I think it looks cool as well. But anything to stand out on the road. I really don't get the idea of trying to blend in with the background when you're on busy roads full of angry people. But that is just my opinion. If we changed those attitudes, perhaps of all of us, it could be a little bit like more riding on the road to continental Europe, which is a much more pleasant thing. And technically doesn't really require any law changes. But there we go. Will things ever change? I don't know. The genie of Pantani only gave Presidente Dan 3 wishes. He didn't give him a crystal ball to look into that future and see what happens. I don't know. Hopefully, people at the top, attitudes will change, things will change. Who knows? Normally, it just stays the same. Anyway, thanks a lot. Do like and subscribe for anything more that's cool to do with vintage bikes. Thanks a lot.